to talk to you about the efficacy of healing prayer. Is prayer good or bad? Can it be both? Intent is the key, and empathy, not sympathy. And later I will tell you the difference, the huge difference between empathy and sympathy. We assume that we live isolated lives, that we're all by ourselves in our own little minds and nobody else knows what we're thinking. Nothing can be further than the truth. Scientists, modern-day scientists, have proven just the opposite. They have been able to convince each other, not just religionists, but convince each other of the very connectedness with the theory of what they call non-locality. And I'm going to say that non-locality is just a very basic term for infinite intelligence. They also call it quantum entanglement, which is just another really, it would be a word that just sort of hurts your head if you're trying to wrap it around it. The subatomic particles have been proven to be cognizant. Let me say that again. Subatomic particles have been proven to be cognizant of one another and influenced by each other over space and time. They can be separated and still be influenced by each other with the absence of force and energy. That sounds like a lot of information to throw out to you. And yet if you think about it, that the very smallest part of one tiny molecule can be influenced by another very tiny part of the very smallest molecule, frozen at 400 minus, so that there is no energy. There is absolutely no force being placed on these molecules, and yet they will form together to become magnetized, and show that when they're trying to push force or energy towards it, they push against it. They created their own will, per se. This tiny, minute, subatomic particle. That speaks volumes for how connected we are. I don't know how many subatomic particles we have in our body, but if you thought that every single particle, to the tiniest degree in your body, has some kind of sentience, how connected are we? Now, I'm going to take this one step further. If you want to look that up, the scientist was Tom Rosenbaum and his students. Tom Rosenbaum. The issue of repeatability has been overcome because it is in the scientific world and can be done over and over and over again, and proven that, yes, these particles react in the same way over and over and over again, because of course, when Tom said, hey, look what I can do here, someone said, you know, no way, no way. And it has been proven in every other country that can come up with these very intricate experiments. Gary Schwartz is another scientist that got into the mix. He decided to find out if he could prove that energy was transferred from one person to the other. So he set up an experiment where if he moved his hand out, he wanted to see if the movement of his hand out would send energy forward. And the experiment proved undeniably that when he did this and pointed a finger, I'm sorry, Lee, pointed a finger at somebody, that energy moved from that person and went through the other person. Through the other person. If you add the pointing of a finger and the intent of anger, you just became a sword. You just became a sword. The intent of that anger just simply cut that person in half. Words are things. Thought and energy is sent from your body constantly. Let's move forward into something that just totally blew my mind. And as I was reading this book that Lynn McTaggart wrote, The Intention Experiment, I just kept going, and you would too. They moved it into the plant kingdom. And I like this part the best. This one gentleman, his name was Cleve Baxter, another scientist, and what he came up with was the polygraph test. He really liked the polygraph test. His whole entire focus in the beginning of his adulthood was trying to prove if people were lying. One night while he was sitting alone, just playing as little boys will, with all of their experiments and their equipment, he attached it just out of a fluke to a rubber plant leaf. He had all these lie detector things on it. Let's see if I think a thought, if the plant will think back. Now, as many times happens when you're just playing around, that's when you find out the most awesome things, because your mind is not over-processing. So here he is, hooking up a lie detector machine to his rubber plant. And so he waters it. Well, the diode on the machine slows down, relaxes. So he says, oh, that didn't work very well. Let's see what I can do to make it pop. So in his mind, not words, in his mind, he says to himself, I'm going to go get a match. Oh, but it's in the other room. I'm going to go get a match and I'm going to burn this leaf. So he comes back. And the thing is just going, ding, 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 ding. The plant recognized his intent. That's phenomenal. Not only did it recognize his intent on that very moment, but the next day, when he was trying to show his partner, look, watch this. Go get a match. Again, the plant thing went bing, 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 bing. That a plant can know our intent is even more phenomenal than the fact that our cellular level can speak to each other.